Hello, hello, hello. Good morning. We are back with Candid Conversations. It has been quite a while since I have been on these IG streets. And so I am so excited that I'm coming back on with my dear sister, one of my oldest sisters, the oldest of mother and father, and I'll introduce her in a little while. Hi, Esther. Hello, Carlito. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining on. So first of all, I want to, for those of you that will see the replay, I want to explain to you what Candid Conversations is. So during the pandemic, I was really struggling as an extrovert introvert. I just discovered that I'm an extrovert introvert. I like to be outside in the world with people, but I also need time for solitude. So during the pandemic and during quarantine, I thought that it was really challenging for me because I couldn't associate with people in the way that I love to. So I started Candid Conversations based on a conversation that I had with one friend of mine. And that one friend of mine decided that she would then want to be, she was like, you should do a show. You should interview people, because I was asking her a lot of questions. And so I said, oh, sure, let's do it. So we did one Instagram live and people really enjoyed it. We enjoyed the canter. And I realized, like, you know what? I love talking to people, asking them questions. How you doing, Antonio? What's going on? My brother in the journey, the liberation journey. And so that's how Candid Conversation started. It started because of my curiosity and my love of people, my love of hearing about how people use different tools in their lives to thrive. And so today's Candid Conversation isn't going to be any different. It's a very special Candid Conversation because I will be talking to my oldest sister. I'm going to bring her on and sort of introduce her publicly to you all. You saw, thank you, Antonio. And so you saw, I did introduce her on my Instagram as I posted for today's event and on Facebook. But I want to introduce her sort of live in real time because she is just an incredible woman who I have looked up to all my life. And so I'm going to go ahead and bring her on. Let's see if you're here. Rufinita, where are you? Here you go. I guess I add you here. So pardon me as I'm still sort of learning, relearning the tools of Instagram, because it's been a while since I've been on here. So I believe I did ask you to come on. Let me see if I did this correctly. Thank you so much for, oh, okay, here it was. I just invited you to join, Rufina. So Esther, we need to have you on. I see that you're on here. You'll probably be my next guest. I'll reach out to you for sure. All right, here we go. Good morning, Rufina.
Good morning.
Good morning. So what many of you may know, so it's going to be weird for me to call Rufina, because in my family, lovingly, we call her Lee. So later, if you want, you could share why we call you Lee. It's a very interesting story, right? So first of all, Rufina, I want to thank you so much for being a yes to this Candid Conversation. I was doing Candid Conversations during the pandemic, talking to different people, most people who I knew personally, but it was an opportunity for me to get to know them sort of intimately and also share them with the world, right? I'm very intentional about who are the people that I keep around me, right? I don't have any say of who my siblings are, right? Because I didn't create that. But I'm also very blessed and fortunate that each and every one of my siblings is actually really special and amazing and fantastic. And it's no different with Rufina Belthrop. She does not have the Bautista name, but she's still a Bautista. Know what I mean?
Oh,
and so, and so Rufina has been an educator for over 28 years. Like, I remember when she became a teacher for the first time, and she could sort of share a little bit of her narrative about that, because I think it's very special how her journey has led to sort of where she is today. And the tools that, Rufina indicated that she would talk to us about is about consistency and resiliency, right? I mean, Rufina is the eldest of five, mother and father. And I remember when Rufina used to sit with each of us in a circle with these textbooks that we would get for free. And this is my fondest memory. I mean, I have so many amazing memories of Rufina and all the ways that she educated us informally and formally. And there was this amazing way. I know you remember this. Lee created a song out of the titles of the textbooks. And I was probably 5 years old, 5 or 6 maybe. But I still remember the song. Do you remember the song?
I do, and I'm not going to sing it.
Okay, we're not going to sing it, but I might sing an excerpt later if we get, real. But it was like, forever we go, widening circles, forever we go. World of surprises, going places, seeing people, widening circles. And I'm actually I got choked up. Did y'all peep that? I got choked up. I got choked up because not only were the titles books that she read every single book to us, like many, many times, but they were also like affirmations, right? in a very interesting way. As I'm singing it, I'm getting choked up. But anyway, but it's not about me today. Today, it's about Rufina Belthrop, who I love and adore. And it just so happens that we are now neighbors. And how exciting is that we get to see each other often, right? And so tell us a little bit, Rufina, about who you are, who are your people, what do you bring to the world? Tell the folks. So folks that are on here now, thank you so much for being here. You can watch the replay on YouTube probably later on today. If you're catching the replay, share it with your folks on YouTube, and definitely look forward to, oh, you know what? I just realized I didn't, never mind, go ahead. So share with us a little bit about who you are and what you bring to the world.
Well, it's interesting what Cindy said about me being an educator early on. I didn't really think about it in that way because they were my siblings, but I did share my love of reading, and she knows that reading was my escapism from all the chaos in the house of sharing a room with 4 girls. Can you imagine sharing a room with these 3 people? Sophia, Evelyn, and Cindy. Anyway, so that was my escapism, and I did share it. So who am I from that? I guess that's the reason why I became an educator of sorts. I mean, I realized it wasn't going to be elementary for me, not the little ones. I could tolerate my little sisters and brothers, but not other people's little people. But I did realize high school was for me. And so I think that's the core, right? My love of reading, mentorship, which started with my 3 little siblings and, of course, my brother. And the career choice that I made. Those things frame pretty much everything I do and how I react in the world. And as Cindy would say it, how I move in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I say that because, people have different ways of identifying how they show up. When you show up in the room, I always say, like, people's energy shows up before you do, right? And so that's why I say the way you move in the world, because sometimes you're not even aware of how you move in the world and how it's impacting people, right? And so, when you said about, your 4 siblings being, your first students, right? Like, how funny was that? And rest assured, she made sure we were doing our homework, right? And tell us a little bit. So you were born where? Tell us about your sort of journey, because I think it's a very interesting one that many people don't know about you, in terms of your heritage and lineage directly.
Me and my sister Sophia, we were both born in Santo Domingo, in the capital. My mother met my father, older gentleman, had just gone through a divorce with 2 kids. And so she ended up coming to the United States, ironically, through sex life, and waited for her to get what we called back then the visa. You would have to get someone that you know to acclimate you to come to the United States. So we waited, and finally we got here. I agree. Sophia was 1.5. So we got to this country. We lived in Harlem, Spanish Harlem at the time. I guess you could call it. What do you call that? Washington Heights.
El barrio.
Right. But we left that right away. We were there maybe a year, and then we came to High Bridge projects. We've been in High Bridge project from there.
Excellent. Wow. So you are first, well, not even first generation, because you were born in the Dominican Republic. And I think that that is like so special because you've always maintained that beautiful connection with our family there in ways that I know that I haven't. And what I find really amazing about your story is you said that I remember there was like rats involved in terms of why we had to move. Well, I wasn't even a thought at the time, right? But why you had to move from Harlem to the Bronx, right?
Yes, my mother was pregnant with twins. So before she brought home the twins, there was a rat infestation in the building that we worked in. Sophia got hurt. She got bitten up by the rats. And at that point, the social worker supported mom in trying to get her housing that was more, up to par with receiving these twins. But that's a blur to me. These twins, I'm like, oh my God, all of a sudden these twins were in the house, right? But I don't remember them well, you know what? They never came to the tenement. We were able to move right away to the project. No, the twins didn't come home to the tenement.
Wow, wow. So you had a huge responsibility being the eldest of, five kids, right? When I was born, Lee was 5 years old. There was a 3-year-old, Sophia, the set of twins that were only, what, 9 months old when I was born?
Yes,
Or
that's a bag.
or like 10 months old. Like, how crazy is that? And there was Rufina sort of being present and being this eldest daughter to Dominican immigrants, right? In the boogie down Bronx during like the crack era, right? Where there was a whole lot going on. Could you talk a little bit about that? Born and raised in High Bridge.
I remember the ESL program because I didn't know any English. I remember being in kindergarten trying to learn English. I remember being taught the colors. I remember coming home trying to figure out, me and Sophia trying to watch TV. I remember Electric Company, Channel 13. I do remember walking the High Bridge Gardens very little. Like now, when suburb mom, I can't imagine my kids walking around the projects at this age, 7, 8, 9. We were walking around at 7, 8, 9 to the store or what have you because mom had no choice. We're up there on the 13th floor with all these little kids. So I was going out in the world at that age. I do remember the crack vials. I remember the fear. I remember not being able to really at night when night came, we couldn't leave the house. I remember feeling a little bit trapped, like we're in these four walls in this apartment, and we really had to wait for dad to come home. And you remember that, like just kind of like we can't really be out there unless mom can watch it from the window. So there was a lot of limitations and not too much going out because of the hustle of working. So I do remember that fear factor. And what's out there. And I do remember the violence. I remember the bullying in the neighborhood. So there was a lot of fear. I do remember. Now that I think about it, I remember that.
No, it's so interesting that you just said, do you remember feeling trapped? And it's so funny because you could interview people from the same family and they have different experiences. I never remember feeling trapped. I never felt trapped. I always had like my own little world going on. And I think that was because I was the youngest of 5. So they had their own thing going on, the older girls. And I remember playing house by myself, being under the bed, creating like a little world, journaling, reading. So, and then whenever I did go out, it was with y'all. So I always felt so much joy being with you all. But it's so funny because I don't remember feeling trapped like that. Like to me, I felt like we were always outside. But I think that by the time I came along and we were of the age that I could go outside, you were already like 10, 11. So it was a different sort of experience. But I can't imagine, because I remember being 6 and 7 and being outside and going to the parks. So that is such an amazing thing that you're like, I felt trapped. And in my mind, I'm like, I remember being, out there. So in many ways, you set the tone for many of us, right? Like sometimes we'll have conversations with our kids and Rufina will say things like, well, Cindy didn't have to worry about that because by the time Cindy was around, they let her do whatever she wanted. I mean, that wasn't true, but I do feel that y'all led the way, right? So that they could trust and believe that we would be okay. Alicia, how you doing? It says, isn't that wild? Everyone's experiences are so different, even in the family, especially being one of the oldest. We were forced to be adults so much early in life. Exactly. Just recently, I found out that Rufina never attended day camp, and I was so surprised. No, I used to cry before I got hit, actually,
Right.
Alicia.
You
I had a strategy.
Yep.
I had a strategy. But anyhow. So what was that like? Like you navigated the schools in the neighborhood, right? You didn't know English. You finally learned English. Then, I mean, when you told me about your journey to middle school, could you talk about what you had to do to get to your middle school?
My middle school was not closed. The bus was 35 cents, but the bus was cumbersome, crowded. It was a pain. So at 7th grade, I walked from High Bridge Project down the stairs all the way down to 100. What was that? 167th and past Morris to the school middle 166. I think that's a 20-minute walk at 7th grade. How old was I? 12 or 13? But it was great for me because I got to escape the regular block. And I got some independence and I got away from these people. It was the independence. So therefore, when my mom wanted to rip me out of there at 8th grade, whenever she was able to get some kind of deal with the Catholic school. So everybody went to Catholic school at the turn when I was about to go to 8th grade. And I was not having it because the Sacred Heart was 4 blocks away. And that was too close for me. I was enjoying the independence from 7th grade, being able to be on my own network, my own thing, away from my siblings. So when mom threatened me, when mom was trying to get me to go to Sacred Heart in 8th grade, I got my middle school teachers to sit her down and tell her why I needed to stay in 166 and why I was really happy in 166. And she listened to their arguments. I was I was playing violin and I had my people, but it was like a visceral reaction when she tried to put me in Sacred Heart. She had me put on the uniform because she had to hand me down. I put on the uniform. I was like, I am not Sacred Heart. I am not. I'm 166 started. So I think that was part of it. That affected everything about me, like being different. I think that's why I'm so different from the other ones too. I never went to Catholic school like they did. I think that affected my whole trajectory, my whole outlook, everything. But mom supported it. I don't know how. If I was mom, I would not support it. So anyway.
And I think that's pretty amazing that you were able to advocate for yourself, negotiate even then, because I feel like you do that for every little thing. You'll be like, what? Take that back. Let's give you back the money. What? You need to call them. Lee is the one you want to call if you got a problem with something, because she will give you suggestions and troubleshoot in ways that you maybe have not thought about, right? And so that mommy was able to say, okay, you know what? This is best for this child. But you knew that you needed to get the adults of the school, because we know that our parents always felt like, the teachers knew more, right? And so doing that, she was able to keep you at that middle school, which was amazing. And I think it is kind of funny because we all went to Catholic school except for Lee, and we would crack up and I think at some point we thought we were like better than you. You know, we were like, oh, we're in Catholic school, we're in private school. Meanwhile, Lee was living her best life and doing things that we couldn't even think about doing, right? And there were so many better opportunities at the school that you went to because it was bigger, because they had more resources, right, than the Catholic school. So I think that's so amazing. So how did you decide, right, when you talk about consistency and resiliency, right? I know that that wasn't easy, you know, that challenge of being the oldest of five. And it wasn't easy. I think that there were many things that you wanted to do and maybe couldn't. Maybe there were times you had to take care of us instead of doing the things that teenagers do, right? And we're so grateful, you know, for you. And every time I do a birthday post, I always say something like, you know, she taught us how to read. She taught us how to do things. And she kept us like in line. You know, I remember the room would be a mess and she would be like, everybody got to clean it. And she would give everybody an assignment. And till this day, if we're doing a group activity, we look to Rufina to give us the directives, right? Like she's the one that gives us the directives. Yes, because she's the oldest, but also because she's the most organized, I feel like, and has it. Well, all of us are like, you know. So what was that like? You know, how did you choose this path of being an educator in the midst of sort of this role that you were playing in the family?
That's so ironic that you say that I had this role and I had this leadership or what have you, because I was also very extremely shy, right? Painfully shy. Like I didn't talk, right? Believe it or not, you know, those who know me in different capacities. But I really didn't talk much. I chose this career because I wanted to. I think that's about, you know, resiliency, like, you know, being able to take yourself out of your shell. I got a pre-teaching program at Walton High School where they taught you how to be teachers. You actually were placed in the classroom junior year and the teacher let you teach some lessons. That was hard. And I don't know how I did that to push myself, but I just knew that shyness was not a good thing in terms of the overall trajectory of where I needed to be in life. So I think that's why I chose it. And then it ended up being, I love social studies. I love the teacher that was teaching me. So I need Miss Opachinsky. I knew, I was like, okay, this is what I need to do. It does take me out of my element. And I think I had a lot to share. And I believe that that's why I ended up with the whole career. Me trying to change my personality, or, you know, like take myself out of that, because yeah, I'm still a bit shy. I'm not like the rest of these siblings, but you know.
She said the rest of the. Did you see that, y'all? Did you see that, y'all? She's like the rest of it. So Alicia just asked a question, which is really interesting. Like, was she like a second mom, and did you like that role? Did you feel that you were like a second mom?
Not that much, because we were tight in age. It's not like I was much older. I mean, Sophia was only 2 years younger. Cindy's only 5 years younger. It's not, the change wasn't that much, so I didn't quite feel like that. And Mom, I'm gonna tell you right now, Mom never made us feel like I had to save it and no kids. Like never, ever, 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 ever. I mean, we had the blessing of her being home. Obviously, if I was a latchkey kid, I would have had the responsibility. But because my mom was home, I didn't get that. So I don't have that same experience as other family members where they had to be a second mom. And absolutely not. No.
Now, what I think is amazing too is that Rufina controlled the TV and the radio.
I didn't know that.
Yes, she did. And so we had to watch what Rufina wanted to watch, and we had to listen to what Rufina wanted to listen to. And what was beautiful about that is that she introduced us, and we had to love hip hop, right? We had to. We knew all the hip hop songs, all the old school songs. I remember being at some party at like 14 years old, and I'm like jamming to like Sugar Hill, and I knew all the words. And they were like, how do you know the words? You wouldn't know this. You were like 6 years old. I was like, my sister would just play all those records, and we would listen to the radio stations all the time. And we had the poster boards, the pictures of all the hip hop artists all over our, bedroom. And so I'm so indebted and grateful that you gave us that love of hip hop And of all the show, like we watch so much TV that I don't even turn on the TV. Like right now, you know, I'm trying to get back into TV. I feel like I watch so much TV.
That's fun.
Um, which is so beautiful. So going to college, I want to talk about this because when I remember Lee getting ready to go to college, and I remember feeling, I don't think I cried, but I remember feeling like devastated, like she's leaving, right? And Lee, you know, she'd explained to us that she was, you know, and by then we were already like in eighth grade, you know, so we knew what college was, right? We didn't know people in our building that sort of went away to college, right? I don't think we knew anybody that did that. Did we know anybody?
I had nobody except for my high school had kids come back to our school to talk about their experience. That's the only way I saw it possible. That's why administrator, I always try to get my own students to come and talk to the kids, because I thought that was the most valuable for me. Not the adults telling me about college. I didn't care what they had to say. But the kids coming back and say, I can go away. I was like, I'm out of here. I can go away. I'm out of here. I am so out of here.
Wow. So tell us how you got out of there, because just that whole story alone is like.
Well, I shared this recently. I don't even think they knew. But I told mommy I wanted to go away for college. And she did not know this, but I didn't even apply to CUNYs. Because I knew I wasn't staying. So I'm not applying to CUNYs. She's like, oh, you know, you can go to leave. You know, you can go to, I heard there's a college nearby. I said, yeah. But I didn't tell her that I didn't apply to any CUNYs. I didn't tell her. I only applied to SUNY only. So, and I forged all her signatures. So she had no idea. I forged the financial aid signatures, the college application signatures, everything. She had no idea that my trajectory was that I was leaving that house, because they had EOP. So the blessing in that is that she had to put the $0 down. So it would not have affected her in terms of money wise, you know, but at some point she did realize that I am leaving, and she was like, okay, she's leaving. Like, I got the money, you know, I got the scholarship. So, you know, Becca sounds like sophisticated. Oh, she got a Becca. Oh, she's so smart. She's so smart. I wasn't smart. I just, EOP, you know, you know, like it just gave you the opportunity. And then plus she was happy that my best friend Jennifer was also going with me. So she felt good. Jennifer was in the car with us. I don't know if Cindy knew that. When mommy sat in the back seat of the car crying the whole ride to Albany.
I don't know why I was the chosen one. I went with y'all. I remember that. I remember the crying the whole ride. I'm not sure why I went out of all the siblings, but I remember her crying the whole. And then my father was so funny, because now we do 2-hour, 3-hour rides like nothing, right? But my father, a 3-hour ride, and he was a cab driver. He had sandwiches, juices. Like halfway through, we had to stop. You remember that?
Like we're going to Canada or something.
Like we were going to Canada. But I remember mommy's crying all the way there and crying all the way back.
I never heard that before.
Like she was just so sad, because of course you're like leaving your child to these people you don't know, and we didn't know any other family members at the time that had those college experiences. So she really was just like, you know, leaving me to the, you know, and to the unknown, right? Like to the unknown, right? You know, and what was amazing is that while you were there, I remember when you shared with us that you had pledged, right? That you joined the sorority, Zeta Phi Beta Incorporated, right? And why did you choose to join a sorority? And tell us about what you've done with that sorority, which I think is just so significant in terms of your leadership and your consistency.
Well, I think that was a leap for me. You know, like I went to SUNY Albany sight unseen. There was no college tour, so that I can say to you. And I joined the sorority sight unseen. What does that mean? I mean, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I really didn't know. I just knew that I had to leave my circle of people. Like I had my friends. I already had a friend by the time I was a sophomore, and I went to the open house for the sorority information, or they call it. I had my people. I had my friends. So it's not like I was looking for friends. I was looking for people. I had my people, but something told me that I had to find some kind of network. I had to find something else. I had to, I don't know, connect to something outside of me, outside of my little circle in college. you know, eventually, I mean, I had my best friend Jen, but ironically, when we went to college, although we still stayed close, we had our own friends. I had my friends, she had her friends.
Oh.
As the I joined the sorority without her, right? You would think I would join with her, but I didn't. Um, and I think that that was big for me. And that took me out of my shell too. You know, I get a lot of pressure. I was the number one, being number one in the line of 11 girls. That was big. That was overwhelming. Thank God for my line sister Cynthia, because she kept me steady because she was the second one. So it was just crazy. I was like, what am I doing? And what is all this? And what's going on? I had no clue. I'm Dominican. I didn't grow up with the whole African American culture experience. I had no frame of reference. I just knew I needed to do something different. And then 32 years later, I'm still very involved. You know, my sister Evelyn and I chartered the chapter when I moved to Rockland, and I'm still very, you know, much involved, and it's one of the best things I ever did. But again, that's the same thing, you know, resiliency and trying to find networking in the college. I know many people who never go back to their college to visit, but because of the sorority, I do. I go every year and I try to support the undergraduates that are there. But that took me to connect it to the college and, you know, with the networking. So I think that was big. Again, that's outside bringing myself out of the shell. I think that's why I pushed my son to try join things. You know, you have to do that.
Wow, that's so amazing because I remember when you came back and you came back wearing your Zeta Phi Beta jacket and all these things, and my mother would make fun of her. She'd be like, "Oh, ella va a jangar con las hermanas," and she was like, Lee. I remember Lee trying to explain to her like what's a sorority, and Lee would say, "You know, they're like my sisters, like my new sisters," and my mother was like, "You have sisters." I think that's so funny because one of the things that has been so admirable, right, is that your consistency in acknowledging where are there areas where you want to grow in and going to those areas even if they're unknown areas, right? Like just recently you joined another sorority. Could you tell us about that?
Yes, I will. It's been an odd road for me in my career, right? This is my 28th year. 18 years as assistant principal in this school. I'm down to my last 3 years in this career, right? So I'm in a trajectory like that's it. And I thought that it was a good timing to go ahead and connect with a network, right? Because the sorority life is all about networking, right? And this particular, and I was explaining that. I was explaining to my son, because my son and my niece were making fun of me yesterday. They said I'm cheating on Zeta Phi Beta with the National Sorority of Phi Beta Kappa. I'm like, I'm not cheating on my sorority anyway. So I try to explain that this is educators anyway. So why are you wearing the red and gold? I'm telling your bachelors, you know, they know the terms and all that. Look, you. Anyway, important for networking. When I retire in 3 years, what am I gonna do? I want to support. I want to give back. I want to find like-mindedness and support schools in different capacities without, you know, the 9 to 5 of the really rigorous AP world, assistant principal
Wow.
world.
Wow, wow. And so it's amazing because you've been very active on Zeta Phi Beta. You know, y'all do a lot of amazing service in Rockland County and nationally. I mean, I have a lot of mutual friends that are Lee's friends and Evelyn's friends on my social media. There's always something going on. And I know that her best friend, Jennifer, became a Zeta a couple of years ago. And so that's just been amazing. And then National Sorority of Phi Delta Kappa does also a lot of amazing things. So definitely, you know, think about ways that y'all could support the amazing work that they do because they do fund scholarships and amazing community projects that are so needed, you know, in different ways. And so let's go back a little bit to, you know, you mentioned your children, right? And how your children they've become involved because you involved them, right? In all the different things. And tell me about, you know, the journey of being a mom and situating yourself in all these different roles because you've never stopped engaging in community, engaging with family, engaging with your Zetas. I mean, you're the vice president of the Zeta Phi Beta chapter in Rockland County, right? You know, so thank you, Alicia. Invite me. I want to chat. All right, take care, Alicia. Thank you so much. And so share with us about your journey of being a mother, right? And all the different facets of your life in making sure that you're maintaining sort of your wellness and as a woman, as a person who loves connecting with people, and then maintaining your role as a mom and wife, right?
That's such a good question. I became a mom at 36 years old. You know, I think I got married at 36 years old, and I became a mom at 36 years old. Um,
Wink, wink.
right. Um, and it was a challenge, right? I had my career. I already had a house that I had purchased. You know, I was already settled into my world. Becoming a mom. So when my husband told me that, you know, if you want to stay home, you know, you can stay home. I was like, stay home. Like, no. It's like, you know, I was blessed enough. My one of my best teacher friends, Minoska's mom, took care of both babies. Back to back, I had them. You know, 36, you better have them back to back. 6. So I had them back to back. It was hard, but I didn't leave my job, right? 8 weeks, 8 weeks back to work, 8 weeks back to work. So again, the right babysitter, of course, was the best thing that you had, right? Otherwise, I couldn't do it. You know, obviously, when the babysitter, you know, when they got older, I think I was paid about $1,500 a month in just childcare, right? But I knew I was going to work. I got up at 4:15, got on my treadmill, dropped the kids off at the babysitter by 6:30, right? And this I did for years until they were old enough to go to Rockland schools. And even then, I had to drop them off somewhere to. It was very difficult, and I think in a lot of ways. And let me tell you something. You know, oh, you can do everything. You can do everything. Yeah. But you know, I'm gonna say that. I became a mom when I was assistant principal. I taught for 10 years. I had a lot of fun. That was awesome. I love teaching. I think in a lot of ways I got pushed to administration. Sometimes I think back at that decision, I'm like, I think I would have still you know, having more fun teaching because administration is very challenging. But, you know, here we are 18 years later as an administrator. But I will say that it was very hard to be a mom and work full time. Of course, there's elements of my job, of course, that would suffer. There's elements of your family that would suffer. You can't do everything. But I knew one thing, that despite that, I still needed network outside of my family and my job. Despite that. And the blessing in all of this is that I have siblings. How many times did Evelyn have my kids or Cindy have my kids? Support that. And my husband, of course. You know, to support that, you know, so I always had a network outside. So I think that for me, in terms of, you know, consistency, of course, I've been in daughter ed, the same school. Let me tell you something. I taught for 10 years at the same high school I attended, right? So, you know, let's tell you, I'm consistent. I've been assistant principal at the same darn school for the past 18 years. Like, I hate change. But sometimes when change comes to me, right? Change comes to me. That was change, right? That was shocking, shock to the system. But you know, you resiliency, you navigate everything. My daughter, she's 16 now, but she has attended 8 different schools, and that's as a result of trying to find the basic things. She's gotten kicked out of 3 or 4 babysitters, right? So you know, like, you know, because you know that's the nature of what I deal with. But I wasn't quitting my job, so you know, you problem solve, you make it work, you know, in a lot of ways. So in terms of being a mother and navigating all that, and being able to be consistent is support, network, finding others, and talking to others and learning. If you don't talk to others, you don't learn. Like you can't stay shy and then learn, and you can't stay shy because you have to learn about the resources. And you know, I have this thing called Open Door. You know, I have support for my daughter Isabella. So you know, in a lot of ways. So you know, Cindy, I will say that's the key for me.
Oh, that's been amazing. And we got Sophia giving us some love here in the chat box. Sophia, you missed it, but you got to watch the replay. I did talk about how Lee was our first teacher. I love that. And I love that Joanne's checking in. Being a mom in her late 30s, the accessibility of family and friends are minimal. Thank you for commending the tribe. You know, it's, and I love your conversation about being a village and articulating when you need something, right? Like, it's not easy to, especially like we grew up in a house. So what, truth be told, my mother ran the house, right? And my father was very present, right? And he was a cab driver, and you know, he had some leadership roles. He did. And also, like, my mother was like, "Oh, you can't do this? Well, I'm gonna figure out how it's gonna get done." And she figured it out, right? And so I feel like we all have that kind of trait of like, okay, we get the help that we need, but if we don't have what we need, we find ways to access the need. Like, one thing about Rufina, if you have an issue you want to troubleshoot, you call her and she'll be like, okay, well, have you thought about this? Right away, your mind goes into, you know, like troubleshooting mode. She's like, amazing. Like, you didn't allow your daughter needing extra support to hinder your ability to access like your own social networks for yourselves, your ability to stay engaged with the different Zeta Phi Beta and now the Phi Beta Kappa community. Like, you were able to identify supports and also ask for, you know, what you needed when you needed it. And if you didn't know it, you would find out the information, which is like amazing. You know, when I think about resiliency, right, like being in a position where you grew up in poverty, right? We grew up on public assistance, living in public housing. Lee was the first one to purchase a home in our family, right? I believe you were the one. And I remember it was just such a big deal. My mother and father were like, you know, my mother, because I don't think Papi was alive at that point, right? But it was a big, big deal. You know, and I want to talk about Bobby because, you know, you were the last one to see him before he passed away. And what I think is the beautiful relationship that you had with Poppy is I remember when you lived at home, when you got your teacher job, Poppy used to take you to work every single day, right? And I remember at one time you were like, "Oh, I could take the bus, or I could take the train." You know, you worked at Walton High School, and he used to take you every single day, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like there was this reverence he had for you because you were his first child of mother, you know, with mom that had like this professional career, right? And it was like a legit, like my daughter went to college and it was like you set the tone. Everybody had to get a master's after you. Everybody, you know what I'm saying? Like, talk about that, like that relationship you had with him, right? Like being the first one to get a career, the first one to get a home and like far away, right? The first one to do so many things.
Yes, he was. He took me to work with his black coffee every morning. And sometimes he would even pick me up. He would have me call the cab service at the time, you know, and then he had a cell phone at one point. So that you could call him so that he could pick you up. No, it was absolutely a blessing. The ride to the airport that morning was so interesting. He was talking a mile a minute. He has so much to say about how he has to support Evelyn on some car she tried to buy, knucklehead Evelyn. I was like, wait, why are you talking about Evelyn? It's 4:30 in the morning. Well, yeah. Anyway, and we were stopping at a store to go buy a lock because he needed to lock his suitcase. Back then, you could lock your suitcase, and we couldn't find the store. That was a big deal to him. I gotta lock the suitcase, and you know. But yeah, he was very proud, and he did have some. You know, he had questions about what I was doing, and he, you know, it was always so interesting. He was very interested in what I was doing, even his lack of knowledge of what it was. So, yeah, very curious.
Wow. You know, and just even your resiliency, like after his death, right? Like, I don't know if you took time from work when that happened. Like,
I did not, and it was really weird because, you know, as you know, the plane crash left it like weird because you couldn't bury him right away. So it was weird coming back to work. And one of my really, really good friends, he posted there was an article in the Post with our family, and he posted that above the time clock. I was so mad. I was so bad because it was like shocking to the system. I'm trying to go back to work and trying to go back to the regular life because you had to go back to work. What the hell you gonna do? You sit at home and do what? There was nothing to do at the time. And he had that article, and I remember going back. And I remember people were asking the weirdest questions. So did they find any parts of it? You know, like, what is questioning? Like, what is this? It was shocking. One of my students in my class also lost her father too, so that was weird. You know, to this day, I'm like, I wonder whatever happened to her. I wonder how she's okay. Yeah, both lost our parents at the time. It was a weird. The class that I had at the time, there's one special class that I shared a lot with. And I say that they were special class because they were with me through the 9/11. When I had to explain the 9/11 to them, I had to teach them to them.
Wow.
I had to teach them what happened with my father to explain that wasn't terrorism. So I have a few friendships from that class to this day.
Oh, that's beautiful. And I remember that my supervisor gave me and Evelyn, at the time, Evelyn and I were school social workers. And our supervisor, like, he gave us like 3 weeks off. And I remember one point, like, while we were all very sad and shocked and grieving, we had these moments where we would be like cracking up, and Lee would be like, "Why are y'all not back at work? Why are you not back at work?" And I remember we were like, he said we don't need to go back. You know what I mean? So we definitely milked it, right? And Lee was like, "Y'all need to go back to work." But she made sure, like, she wanted us to make, like, don't you risk losing your job. Like, you were always very concerned about, I mean, we take a lot of risks in our lives. Like Sophia, myself, Evelyn, we've taken a lot of job risks, right? Where Lee would be like, "Why are you doing that? What? They're giving you a pay cut, like, what are you doing?" But then eventually she'll be like, "Oh, it seems like you're enjoying your job." But definitely you would always give us things to think about and consider, right? Like, I remember when I was thinking about moving to Rockland, you were like, at the time I was working at Staten Island. And I remember I always got my own thing going on in my head. And I remember thinking, and Lee was like, "Let me get this straight. You're going to buy a house in Rockland and then drive to Staten Island and drive a Mary to the Bronx for school?" And I said, "I'm going to figure it out. Don't worry." And I was like, "Yeah, I guess." I mean, it all worked itself out, right? But I remember you were like, "What?" Now, I want to definitely, I want you to share, anything else before we open it up for questions. I encourage, if anyone has any questions, there's a little question box at the bottom, and definitely welcome you to ask Rufina any questions about what she's shared. So first, I'd like for you to share any sort of closing thoughts before we open it up for questions.
Well, a closing thought. Sometimes I'm in awe of all of you in terms of I'm for right, right. Like currently, I'm being pushed to do something different. Like I have to do something different now, for sure. But my consistency can be a flaw or not, right? The fact that I've had uninterrupted DOE service allows me to retire at 55. Right? If I had taken time leave, I wouldn't have been able to do so. Of course, it's allowed me to pay off my home, right? Like, so I can be truly ready for retirement. Like, there's certain things in terms of that, but I can't help but to also think about that. If I had taken those risks, I had it in me too. I had the resiliency in me to be able to do it. Of course, thinking back, it's not too late now. I can think about what's next. But in closing, I will say that, we choose the path that we choose because that's what our spirit moves us to do so. But you can't, I'm not going to say have regrets because, what's that for? But I will say that I wonder sometimes, like, oh, I could have. And my siblings are proof that if I wanted to do so, I could, but I just chose not to. So, I put it that way for myself.
No, that's so beautiful because I love that you talked about that because Mom was just so proud of you as well. I think about, because I lived with her for the last few years of her life. Like, she was like, you'll be talking to her about something going on with you, and she'd be like, "I want to call Lee. How's Lee doing?" I'm like, "I'm talking to you. Why you want to worry about Lee?" You know what I mean? So, and just thinking about like how you've navigated so many different things in your lives. And, there's a lot of people who don't know, right? But I also feel like the way that you show up so consistently, so resiliently, with so much love and passion and joy. Lee used to throw parties, y'all, that we would be having us a good time. We were just talking about that the other day. We were like, now when we went through a party, we think about it. We're like, damn, we got to clean up. We got to do this. We got to do that, right? You know, and so I admire you. You know, I cherish that we not only are siblings, but that we get to be friends. And so I know a lot of people can't say that. So that's definitely a gift. So thank you for that. So I'd like people to put a question. You can either put it in the little circle with a question box or actually type it in the comment section. And so thank you all for sticking around. Esther, Melinda, Joanne, Ironta, and Lynn. Thank you so much. And Sophia. So please ask us some questions or any comments that you have. Why, Rhonda says that's a blessing to have a supervisor with empathy. Absolutely. I was so grateful to have that empathy. Oh, and Esther said that Papi was always funny. Oh, Esther knew him because he would come to my job all the time when Esther was my supervisor. And Sophia was like, you were the OG first generation. And that Sophia said that because of you, you gave us all the courage to go away to college. So Sophia just asked you a question. She said, what would you like retirement to look like ideally? That is such a Sophia question.
It is a Sophia question. She's asked me that recently every now and then. Oh, because he's like, I talk about it so much, and she's like, so what? Like, why do you keep talking about this? Retirement, I can do whatever the heck I want to do. I have the financial independence to say that if I want to take on something, I can do so. Not if I want to do nothing, I can do nothing. If I want to get more involved on a more local level, regional level, national level with the sorority, I will do so because I can. I have the flexibility and the financial ability to do so. So that's what it gives me freedom. How about that? Freedom.
Oh, wonderful. Awesome. So we had hello, dancing into parenthood. How you doing? This is a great conversation. This is awesome, Cindy. Rufina, what advice would you give your younger self?
I would tell that girl, don't become an assistant principal. Enjoy your time at Walton, which, I mean, Walton closed on me, right? The school I was teaching at closed. But I would tell my younger self, go work outside DOE and go see something different. Go. Or maybe I would tell my younger self, because I didn't meet my husband until I was 33. I would tell my younger self, leave the state. Go check out a different system, and if you don't like it, come back. Go travel more. Go Europe. Go to Africa. Go everywhere. But I didn't do that.
Wow, that's fantastic. And so we're going to close out. Esther just said, I'm glad to know lead better. Retirement is great. Oh, Esther's living her best life. Esther, yes, explore more. Sometimes we cling to the safety. Absolutely. Well, we thank you all for listening. Those of you that are listening on the replay, definitely leave some comments. If you want to check out the other Candid conversations, you can go to the YouTube channel of Cindy Bautista-Thomas and catch them there. I did interview Sophia and Evelyn. I have to catch my brother. He's not on IG, although I think he just joined IG, so I have to see. But y'all have a fantastic rest of the day. Rufina Belthrop, thank you so much. I love you so much, and have a fabulous rest of the day.
Yes, thank you, everyone, especially all my stars for listening. I saw you tune in.
Take care. Bye.